Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. My name is Nurul Rahma with student ID E1D022131. So now I'm going to present my thesis proposal entitled Improving English Vocabulary Through Exposure to English Film, The King's Speech, a study on EFL learners. So this research is conducted in the context of English as a foreign language learning, where English is not used as a daily means of communication. Therefore, learners often rely heavily on classroom instructions and formal materials to develop their language skills, particularly vocabulary. So this study is motivated by the fact that vocabulary is not only about knowing many words, but also about being able to use those words accurately, confidently, and appropriately in real communication. Many EFL learners already possess basic vocabulary knowledge, yet they struggle to pronounce words correctly, understand contextual meaning, or apply vocabulary naturally in speaking and writing. Through this presentation, I will explain the background of the study, research question, and etc. So, first of all, the background of the study. Vocabulary plays a central role in English language learning because it functions as the foundation of all language skills. Without sufficient vocabulary knowledge, learners cannot understand spoken input, express ideas clearly, or comprehend written text effectively. In EFL contexts such as Indonesia, vocabulary improvement becomes even more challenging because English exposure is mostly limited to classroom activities, textbooks, and examination rather than daily communication. So, in many EFL classrooms, vocabulary learning still relies on traditional approaches such as memorizing word lists, translating vocabulary into the first language, and completing mechanical exercises. Although these methods may help students recognize words for tests, they often fail to support long-term retention and meaningful use. So as a result, learners may know the meaning of words but struggle to use them correctly in a sentence. In sentences or real-life communication. So this condition highlights the urgent need for more contextual and engaging learning strategies that focus on improving vocabulary quality, not just quantity. One alternative learning medium that has gained attention in recent years is the use of English films as language learning. Films provide authentic language input that reflects real communication, supported by visual elements such as facial expressions, gestures, and situational context. According to Crescent's input hypothesis, learners acquire language more effectively when they are exposed to comprehensible input that is meaningful and slightly above their current level. Films naturally provide this type of input by combining language with visual and emotional cues. So, among various types of films, The King's Speech is particularly relevant for vocabulary improvement because it emphasizes dialects, pronunciation, and formal language use. The film presents British English with clear articulation and structured sentences, which are beneficial for EFL learners who need accurate language model. In addition, the emotional storyline about overcoming speech difficulties increases learner engagement and motivation. When learners feel emotionally connected to the content, they are more likely to pay attention, process vocabulary deeply, and remember what they have learned. So based on the backgrounds of study, this research is guided by three main research questions. The first question examines the extent to which exposure to the film The King's Speech is effective in improving English vocabulary among EFL learners. This question focuses on whether film-based instructions leads to measurable improvement in vocabulary knowledge, particularly in terms of usage and contextual understanding. The second question explores the types of vocabulary that are learned or improved after learners are exposed to the film, such as general vocabulary, formal expressions, or context-specific terms. And the third questions investigates the challenges encountered by learners when learning vocabulary through film exposure, including difficulties related to pronunciation, speed, unfamiliar accent, or cultural references. These questions are important to evaluate both the benefits and limitations of using films as a learning media. So next is the research objectives. The objectives of this study are formulated based on the research question. The first objective is to investigate the effectiveness of using the King's Speech as a learning medium for improving English vocabulary among EFL learners. This sub-objective aims to determine whether there is a significant improvement in learners' vocabulary performance after film exposure. The second objective is to analyze the types of vocabulary that are improved through the learning process, including how learners understand meanings, pronounce words, and use vocabulary in context. The third objective is to examine the challenges faced by learners during the learning process, which can provide insights into how film-based instructions can be improved and adapted to learners' needs. So next is the research significance. Theoretically, this study contributes to the field of second language acquisition by reinforcing Crescent's input hypothesis. The findings are expected to demonstrate that repeated exposure to comprehensible and contextualized input through film helps learners strengthen their existing vocabulary knowledge rather than merely introducing new words. In addition, this study supports Meyer cognitive theory of multimedia learning by highlighting the role of audiovisual input in vocabulary improvement. By engaging both auditory and visual channels, learners can process information more effectively, leading to better retention and deeper understanding of vocabulary. This research also emphasizes vocabulary improvement as a gradual process involving pronunciation, meaning, and appropriate usage. And research significance particle. From a particle perspective, this study provides English teachers with an alternative instructional strategy that is both engaging and effective. Using films in vocabulary instructions allows teacher to present language in authentic context, helping students improve pronunciation, understand meanings more clearly, and apply vocabulary appropriately. Furthermore, this research encourages EFL learners to become more autonomous by using English films as a supplementary learning resources outside the classroom. The findings may also serve as a reference for curriculum designers and educational institutions to integrate film-based learning into English instructions, particularly in contexts with limited exposure to authentic English. Next is the literature review. So, the literature review of this study focuses on two main variables: vocabulary improvement and English film as a learning medium. Vocabulary improvement is discussed as a process that emphasizes deepening learners' understanding and use of vocabulary rather than simply increasing the number of known words. So, this review also explains the role of English films as authentic and multimodal learning materials. Previous theories and studies indicate that Films provide rich language input, emotional engagement, and contextual support, all of which contribute significantly to vocabulary improvement among EFL learners. So, for the first variable, vocabulary improvement refers to the development of both the breadth and the depth of vocabulary knowledge. It includes learners' ability to recognize words, understand meanings, pronounce them correctly, and use them appropriately in different communicative contexts. This concept differs from vocabulary acquisition, which focuses mainly on learning new words. In this study, vocabulary improvement is understood as a gradual process in which learners move from partial knowledge to more accurate and fluent use. This process is supported by repeated exposure, meaningful context, and opportunities to notice and practice vocabulary in real situations. So, second variable, English film as learning medium. English film are considered authentic learning materials because they present natural language used by native speakers in real-life situations. Films combine spoken language with visual information such as actions, settings, and emotions, which helps learners understand vocabulary more easily. As a learning medium, films provide multimodal input that supports comprehension, motivation, and retention. When films are used with guided activities, learners are encouraged to pay attention to vocabulary, understand its usage, and remember it more effectively than through traditional methods. Next is the theoretical framework. This study is grounded in several theories, including Krassen's input hypothesis, Nation's vocabulary learning framework, and Mayer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning. These theories explain how meaningful contextual and multimodal input supports vocabulary improvement. By integrating these theories, this study suggests that exposure to the King's speech provides comprehensible input, emotional engagement, and repeated encounters with vocabulary. These factors work together to help learners improve vocabulary accuracy, pronunciation, and contextual understanding. So, previous studies have shown that English movies have positive effects on vocabulary learning, motivation, and comprehension. Research conducted by Johansson et al., Abbott and Adjout, and Alfaiz et al. Indicates that learners benefit from movie-based instruction in items of vocabulary usage and confidence. However, most of these studies focus on vocabulary acquisition or general movie exposure, and also the vocabulary improvement. This study differs by focusing specifically on vocabulary improvement through a single linguistically rich film, The King's Speech, highlighting the originality and contribution of this research. Next is research design. This research employs a mixed method descriptive approach, combining quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative data are used to measure vocabulary improvement through pre-test and post-test, while qualitative data are used to explore learners' perceptions and experiences. This approach allows the researchers to obtain a comprehensive understanding of both measurable learning outcomes and the learning process itself. By combining numerical data and descriptive analysis, the research findings are expected to be more meaningful and well supported. Okay, now is the data sources and data collection techniques. The primary data sources of this study is the English film The King's Speech, which serves as the main learning material. Secondary data include test results, questionnaires, interviews, and observation notes collected during the learning process. Data collection techniques involve observation, vocabulary testing, questionnaire, distribution, interviews, and documentation. These techniques are used to ensure that vocabulary improvement is examined from multiple perspectives, providing more reliable findings. And the research instruments and data analysis. The research instruments used in this study include observation sheets, vocabulary tests, questionnaires, and interview guides. These instruments are designed to measure vocabulary improvement, learner engagement, and learning challenges. So, qualitative data are analyzed using descriptive statistics and paired sample t-tests to identify significant improvement. Qualitative data are analyzed through thematic analysis to interpret learners' perceptions and experiences during the learning process. So yeah, in conclusion, this study proposes the use of the King's Speech as an effective learning medium for improving English vocabulary among EFL learners. Films provide authentic, contextual, and emotionally engaging input that supports vocabulary improvement beyond memorization. Thank you very much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.